Right, what's happening, people, and welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Now, if you are new around here, please do me a massive favour. At the end of this video, if you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button and also click the bell so that you get a notification every time one of my videos goes live. So the news broke yesterday that Chelsea would be going back into the transfer market for a number 10, as I previously predicted. But it ain't Kudus, it ain't Cherki, and it definitely is not Jadon Sancho. Chelsea are very close to agreeing a deal for Cole Palmer from Manchester City. So I'm going to be covering that news in this video. I'm going to give my initial reaction, let you lot know what I think that Cole Palmer can bring to this Chelsea team. But first, we played again at Stamford Bridge last night, and we won again at Stamford Bridge last night, running out 2-1 winners over AFC Wimbledon in the second round of the League Cup. So yeah, it's a funny one last night. It's the first time that I can remember Chelsea entering the League Cup at the second round stage. It's also the first time that I can remember in God knows how long a Chelsea match not being televised. I know we get it sometimes with certain pre-season friendlies, behind closed doors, things and whatnot, but yeah, to not have any television cameras at the ground was a little bit surreal. And after initially trying as hard as I could to find like a dodgy link, my Fire Stick wasn't working. I put it up on my story and a lot of you lot got back to me, but in the end I had to settle for the live commentary and watching the extended highlights this morning. So I won't speak massively in too much detail about it. What I do know was there was a few shaky moments in there. Obviously Robert Sanchez giving away a penalty, which then AFC Wimbledon took the lead through. But Madueke stepped up to the plate, won us a penalty, converted the penalty. Enzo Fernandez came on. He pretty much ran the game from when he came on. And how unlucky that there were no television cameras there, because Enzo finally got his first Chelsea goal last night. AFC Wimbledon, I think the goalkeeper tried to kick it out, dispossessed. Enzo slots it home. He's opened his account for Chelsea. And it's funny, I was singing his praises this week and a few people were saying to me, he's not even any good. And yeah, those people are just idiots. So yeah, not really too much for me to touch on from last night. It was a heavily changed team. Something I was sort of in opposition for because I really want to go deep. Well, I don't want to go deep. I want to win this cup. With like, you know, the recent form we've had and whatnot. League Cup, FA Cup, that sort of thing would taste so much sweeter to me than maybe it had done in seasons gone by. So because I want to go far in this cup, I wanted to go strong with a lineup. But let's be honest, we got the job done. Poch got a chance to look at a lot of players that maybe he didn't see initially in pre-season, so they may now come into the fold. And from what I saw, as I say, Madueke, Enzo, and also Ugochukwu, all of those had really good matches from what I saw. But again, I wasn't in attendance, so yeah, we'll draw more conclusions when we saw more of these players. Anyway, back to the Cole Palmer news. Cole Palmer to Chelsea Football Club. Where the has this come from? You know, there's certain players, yeah, or even certain teams whose players I just never really look at because I sort of just feel like those players are never going to come on my radar anyway. So let's say, for example, when Cole Palmer is coming through at Manchester City, I'm really not paying that closer attention to him, you know? And also, even Manchester City in general, like, I watch their Premier League matches, I watch their Champions League matches. However, domestic cups, I'll probably only watch the goals they score, you know? I just might see the highlights for some of Man City's matches, but being that in the domestic cups, Cole Palmer has, I'm just going to leave that in, Cole Palmer has made a lot of his appearances. Obviously, I'm not going to sit on here and lie and say to you, I know everything about Cole Palmer. I really don't. When I really started to notice Cole Palmer was probably towards the end of last season and obviously over the summer this year. Now, I feel like there's so much talent in that Man City team that you have literally got to be head and shoulders above every single player in that 11 just to stand out. And also, you've almost got to go against what Pep Guardiola wants from you a little bit, which, let's be honest, when you're a young player trying to break into the first team is not the best thing to do, you know? Everyone knows that we only got to see, 20% of Jack Grealish's true form when he first came into that Manchester City side. And I actually watched an interview where Jack Grealish said, you know, it's about him and Pep getting to learn and know each other because Jack feels like he has a lot more to offer than Pep maybe is systematically allowing him to at this moment in time. So Grealish had to come into Pep Guardiola's side and massively quickly adapt because he was coming into a team that had so much talent bedded in it throughout the entire squad. They weren't a side like the Aston Villa team that he'd been playing for that had been heavily reliant upon individual talents such as Grealish's. Also, we can look at the sort of redeeming form from Raheem Sterling that we've seen in the past couple of weeks, and I also watched an interview of him saying that he had spoke to Mauricio Pochettino and the instruction for this season basically was take the reins off, run at players and express yourself like you used to in your early days at Man City and maybe your time at Liverpool. So that would lead me to believe that Pep Guardiola almost confines a lot of these players who have those attributes to be able to unlock a defence, run at players and whatnot. So I think that what we need to take into account here is that the player we're getting, or the player we might end up getting, may not be the player we've seen too much of. And that can be for good or for bad. We might get an amazingly good player who can make something out of nothing but has been slightly confined in a Pep system, or we could be looking at a player whose levels have been massively elevated by the class around him, and actually where he comes into a side where his presence and his performances will be relied upon a little bit more, he might struggle at first. So let's look into it. Chelsea Football Club have agreed a fee of around 40 million plus 5 million in add-ons with Manchester City to sign their 21-year-old midfielder, Cole Palmer. The Man City Academy graduate has shown a lot of versatility when it comes to the positions that he can play across the pitch, having played in the midfield, across the front line, but in the short term, I believe he's coming in for Chelsea as a number 10. And one thing that I don't do is just come on here and talk for the sake of talking. There's a lot of people that will talk a load of shit, having watched a couple of highlights of Cole Palmer, and tell you he's the best thing since sliced bread, but I can't do that because I haven't seen all that much of Cole Palmer. What I've seen by him, I have been impressed, because towards the end of last season and definitely over the summer, Cole Palmer's performances have elevated even more than we had seen in times gone by. Obviously, he played a pivotal part in that England under-21 side that reached and ended up winning the under-21 Euros. He was really good in that tournament. And then we saw in the Super Cup final, he scored a header against Sevilla, didn't he? And then about a week later, slotting home a lovely left-footed placement shot against Arsenal in the Community Shield. And although we haven't got a massive back catalogue of Premier League appearances to draw reference to when we try and work out what sort of player we're getting, what we do know is recently he has played a vital part in big occasions against big teams. He looks really good in tight spaces, has a very good first touch, has a wand of a left foot when he uses it, and he's just spent a vital part of his mental and physical development learning under the creme de la creme when it comes to modern day management, which is Pep Guardiola. And we all know that when a player does not want to be at Manchester City, Pep Guardiola does not want to try and keep that player. So when Cole Palmer had started to come to fruition a little bit over the summer, he had those two good performances in obviously the Super Cup final and the Community Shield. He's probably turned around and said to Pep, look, I want to be in the first team. Pep can't guarantee him minutes, and for that reason, Pep's happy to let him move on. Also, when you look at the acquisitions that Man City are bringing in now, you know, bringing in Núñez from Wolves, that's a player who could sort of play in a like-for-like position with Cole Palmer. So I think if you're Cole Palmer, you're sitting looking at that and going, maybe I will slightly drop down a level when it comes to obviously where we're finishing in the league last season and whatnot, and go and be a part of this really exciting project at Mauricio Pochettino's new look Chelsea. So he comes in, there's a starting berth for him more or less straight away in that sort of Nkunku/Chukwuemeka shaped hole, and he's not going to cost us a fortune. Sort of. Now, 45 million quid's a lot of money, and I do get that, but it's also less than we paid for Mudryk, Cucurella, it's less than we paid for Lavia, Axel Disasi, it's the same amount that Man City played for Calvin Phillips, who can't get start for love nor money. So, if you factor in the fact that he's English as well, which we also know puts a premium on these players' heads, I don't think it's a bad price at all. You've also got to remember the fact that this kid is 21 years old. So, let's say it did go disastrous. The first thing is, we're probably not going to need to pay the £5 million in add-ons, because I would imagine they're probably add-ons that would come to fruition if we were to finish in like Champions League spots, if he was to hit certain personal or individual accolades. So we wouldn't play that 5 million probably. So then you're looking at 40 million. And when you look at players in today's modern day of football, players will get sold. They will move on for money, you know. There was a time when I was sitting and thinking there's no way we're getting money for Mendy, no way we're getting money for Ziyech, Pulisic, all these players. And what's happened? We have managed to get money for them. So I know that there's certain situations where, let's say, for example, like a Harry Maguire at Man United at the moment, he's sitting out his contract, he's waiting on the bench. Even if he doesn't play, he's going to end up being a bit of a burden to them. They want him gone, but he doesn't want to go unless he gets paid the money. Fair enough. Harry Maguire is on sustained substantial, massive wages compared to what Cole Palmer will be on for a start, yeah? And also, for every one example I can use, which is, you know, the Harry Maguire example I just used, I could name you 100 times that teams have been able to move players they didn't want on. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is that if you look at this transfer from a risk versus reward perspective, I think it weighs quite heavily in our favour. The risk is the kid comes in, doesn't do that well, and then we're stuck with him on the books for 5-6 seasons. And this risk can be very easily combated by just moving him on, because if he doesn't play well, he's not going to be in the first team. He's leaving Manchester City because he's not going to be in the first team. He's already now had a taste for sort of international achievement, having won the under-21s tournament. He's going to want to stay in that international setup. So I don't see Cole Palmer being a Ross Barkley type or someone like that who's going to fizzle out early and then they're happy to just sit on the bench and pick up their wages. I think that he'll push for a move if he's not getting minutes. And then we look at the reward. The reward is he comes in, lights up Stamford Bridge, makes that number 10 position his own, and slots in perfectly as another piece to this growing jigsaw that Mauricio Pochettino is tasked with putting together. And if you're worried about an overbloated squad or anything like that, let me just tell you this. We are never going to have a spotless, clean injury list with no first-team admissions. We're Chelsea Football Club, and for that reason, we're always going to have injuries. Whether the medical team needs looking into, that's a topic for another video. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments. We're also going to be playing European football of some kind next season, which means way more fixtures, and obviously we're going to need a bigger squad to deal with that. And more players are still going to move on. Obviously, we've shifted a lot of the deadwood out this window, but there will still be more departures at Stamford Bridge. Younger players maybe going out on loans and whatnot. And I don't think we're going to have a massively overbloated squad this season when we're seeing some of the last-minute sort of deals that are getting tied up towards the end of this transfer window. And then some people have put the question to me and say, well, what about when the injuries do ease up? Will Cole Palmer even be a starter then? And I get that. It's a valid question, because if you see Christopher Nkunku as a 10 and only a 10 and Cole Palmer as a 10 and only a 10, well then there's a debate there. Who starts and, you know, who features more out of the two of them? But what I would say is the versatility of both players show you that it's not that concrete that, you know, you can't get Christopher Nkunku and Cole Palmer in the same side. Cole Palmer's good at drifting out wide, so is Christopher Nkunku. A lot of people are forgetting that because, you know, we're all quite high on Nicholas Jackson at the minute, we're not even considering this, but Nkunku's played a lot of football as a number 9. So here's why I am massively optimistic with this transfer. Chelsea's main problem over the last couple of seasons, long before even Todd Boehly was here, in my opinion, has been breaking down a low block against teams that are happy to come to Stamford Bridge or even be at their home ground against us, sit in tight, defend for their lives, and hope to catch us on the counter-attack while we struggle to find the key that can help us unlock a really tight defence. Now, what I believe can unlock those defences is a creative player who can see passes that maybe the opposition defenders can't see, or a player who is able to take men on, draw men out of their sort of structured positions on the pitch where the manager wants them towards the ball, and then create little pockets of space to open up for other players to run into. And from what I have seen, Cole Palmer can do both of those things. And if there is any experience that can prepare you for that exact specific situation, believe me, it's playing for Manchester City. Teams will do that low block against them all the time. They'll sit there, defend for their lives, try and nick a goal on the counter, or just try and get a draw at the Etihad and then move on. So Man City players are well equipped in dealing with these low blocks and trying to break teams down that are happy to sit there and defend. So yeah, be interesting to see how this one plays out. It might even be announced by the time I get this video out, but I reckon that it's going to be today, which is Thursday, that it gets announced. I think it will probably be too soon to see him in the lineup against Nottingham Forest, which is a match that I'll be in attendance for, but we could see him get some minutes off the bench. If not, we got the international break after that, and then I'm sure we'll see more of him when the teams come back from that international break. But I just wanted to get this video out really quickly now. I want your lot's initial reaction. Obviously, you've seen my initial reaction to it. Do you think that Cole Palmer is even a good player? Do you think that he has a starting berth in this Chelsea team? And do you believe, like I do, that he can hold the key to unlocking some of these defences when teams are trying to sit in deep against us? Or do you think this is too much of a risk in signing Cole Palmer? So let me know your thoughts. Thank you once again to everyone who's subbing, liking, sharing, most of all commenting, because I love getting a gauge and seeing what your lot's thoughts are on these specific scenarios. And obviously, look, I've said it time and time again, it's down to you lot that a lot of these good things are happening. I went on Rio Ferdinand's podcast yesterday. Rio weren't there. It was me, Flex and Danny Murphy. That was really good. Mad meeting Danny Murphy, because I remember I used to go to like Fulham matches a lot when I was a kid, and I went to a lot of matches in that, not Champions League, in that Europa League run. I was at the match when they beat Juventus 4-1. So, yeah, to then be sitting podcasting with Danny Murphy is a bit surreal, but that's crazy. I'm back on the kickoff on Sunday, which is obviously the Arsenal-Man United game. That's a big one. I think we're live from 4 p.m, but I'll put it up on my story and let you know. But obviously, if you can, head over to the chat on the kickoff. Keep supporting, keep getting your comments in. It's overwhelming seeing how many people are commenting nice things on that. So I'm really, really appreciative for that. Yeah, and I'm going to drop my preview to the Nottingham Forest game tomorrow, where Josh will give his lineup, and then on the day of the game I'll drop a final thoughts video where I give my lineup and all my final thoughts about the game. So please do me a favour, if you've liked the video, hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're not already, hit the bell, share it, knock on your next door neighbour's door, ask them to have a watch of it, all the good stuff. I'll see you all in the next one.